Movies are a magical thing. They bring us into worlds we could only ever dream of or show us realistic depictions of the complexities of our own human nature. Every movie tells a story, but some accomplish this better than others. Therefore, today I want to share my opinions on some of the greatest movies of all time. However, a simple top 10 video would be stale and boring and repetitive, so instead I'll be giving my recommendations as to what movies I believe are the best within a given film genre. Now in most cases I will provide two options, and those two options will be amazing movies within their genre, but also provide different perspectives of what that genre is, and often represent varying subgenres within the main genre. However, I must preface this video by saying that this is all my opinion. The art of film can have objective levels to it, which helps us distinguish between the crap and the great. However, subjectivity and bias regarding our own experiences and perceptions of the world will always play a part in our preferences, and therefore we all enjoy different movies. So if you don't agree with my choices, then feel free to leave your own down in the comments. Hopefully the comment section will be a beautiful place in which we can all discover new movies and discuss our cinematic passions. In this video I will be talking about the genres that I personally feel like I truly understand. This however means that some genres of movies I will be leaving out if I don't feel that I'll be able to give a good enough recommendation. For example, noir movies have never quite been my forte, and I simply just wouldn't feel comfortable choosing a movie to represent that genre. My choices in this video are my views as to what movie represents the core values of the given genre, and therefore some movie genres I just can't talk about because I don't truly understand their values. Some more of these genres include rom-coms, war movies, and disaster movies. If you particularly enjoy these specific genres or others that I don't cover, then be sure to give your own recommendations down in the comments as well. Anyways, I've been rambling on for too long now, let's just get into the video. We're starting off with fantasy, and naturally The Lord of the Rings are my chosen movies. This trilogy is the fantasy that all other fantasies are based on, and yeah, I'm choosing 3 movies here because you can't just watch one of them. If you don't watch all 3, then you miss out on the narrative as a whole, and that narrative is perfect. The Lord of the Rings are not just every nerd's orgasmic imagination on screen, but they're also movies of the highest quality. The world created by Tolkien is so rich with lore and wonder and mystery, and the films bring it all to life so beautifully. Most all of the characters are compelling and enjoyable to watch. The battle scenes in this trilogy are amongst the most iconic battle sequences in all of cinema, and alongside a more than stellar soundtrack, you will be moved to tears on several occasions. Every single detail in these movies come together to craft a truly surreal experience. You have your lighthearted fantasy elements with big trolls to fight, but you also have deep and intricate character moments that help these movies deal with complex themes such as hope, oppression, and human motivations. The Lord of the Rings has something for everyone, and I believe these movies to not only be a pinnacle of filmmaking, but also the perfect picture of what fantasy is all about. If medieval fantasy is not for you, then Star Wars A New Hope is a brilliant fantasy movie. And before you guys scream at me that Star Wars is science fiction, I'm just gonna stop you right there. Star Wars is not science fiction, it's fantasy. Science fiction has to be more or less grounded in science, which Star Wars isn't. George Lucas made a decision early on to focus on fantasy elements more than realism in terms of the scientific rules of the universe, and basically do what he thought would be the most enjoyable. This is why space battles have sound in them, and why there are magical space wizards. However, I'm getting sidetracked. Star Wars is a fun science fantasy movie about adventure. The original did so much for filmmaking, and it deserves all the praise. It's just a good lighthearted movie that you don't even need to watch the rest of the movies to enjoy, though it's best if you do. And so it stands pretty well on its own. So yes, Star Wars is my alternative fantasy choice. And I think fittingly next we'll talk about science fiction. Interstellar is my ideal vision of a great science fiction movie, and maybe it's my bias towards Christopher Nolan, my favorite director, that's talking, but it's just a really solid movie in all aspects. I know a lot of people would place 2001: A Space Odyssey in this place, but I personally don't engage with that story as much as I do with Interstellar. Now don't get me wrong, I think 2001: A Space Odyssey is brilliant science fiction, probably even an objectively better icon for the genre, but the emotional story that Interstellar brings, at least to me, is enough to warrant this position. For me, the movie underneath the spectacle is the most important aspect, and great science fiction will always lose out to a great science fiction story. Oh god, I'm gonna get shit on for this. But yes, Interstellar is a beautiful and long story about a man who has to travel into space to try and find an alternative planet for the survival of humankind as Earth is dying out. For this journey, he leaves behind his family and everything he knows and loves with no guarantee of safe return, and the whole movie is just packed with emotion and adventure and complex characters and themes. It's a wonderful movie, and I'd recommend it to anyone who enjoys science fiction, so yeah, Interstellar is my ideal science fiction picture. However, if you want a more lighthearted science fiction, then Back to the Future is a pretty good option. It's still somewhat grounded in science, even though it caters more towards a younger audience. but that doesn't mean that it lacks complexity or nuance. It's just a different vibe. Back to the Future is great, you all know that. Next, we go into arguably my favorite genre, but also the genre that I feel is the most lacking in good movies. And I'm talking about horror. Now, I don't scare easily, and trust me, I'm not just trying to sound manly or anything, but I just don't enjoy cheap jump scares. Because even though I jump, I don't feel scared, and that short-term shock doesn't last. Very few movies actually frighten me, and have a real effect on me that lasts for multiple days, and it's often the ones that are grounded in reality. It's the movies that are about real psychology and the deepest, most horrifying perversions of the human mind that truly get to me. Therefore, I've chosen Silence of the Lambs to represent horror movies. This movie is not scary because of jump scares or ghosts. It's scary because it puts the viewer into the main character. We feel what she's feeling. I'm not going to reveal anything just in case you haven't watched it because this movie is so good at making you feel unsettled. It builds its narrative off of manipulating human emotion and tapping into our darkest fears. It knows exactly how to frighten us. Anthony Hopkins plays Hannibal Lecter perfectly, one of my absolute favorite movie villains of all time. Silence of the Lambs is a true reflection of what horror is. Now I also want to talk about the slasher genre, and it's one of my favorites because I love gore. However, most of the movies in the genre are very laughable and very open to having the piss taken out of them. They don't tend to truly haunt you like psychological horrors do, but they're just a lot of fun. I believe Scream is a wonderful slasher movie. It's not the peak of horrific moments like other movies, but it's realistic. It's more relatable to us young adults. It's something that could very well happen in real life to any of us. It's not as good as Silence of the Lambs, but it's a great movie to watch at a sleepover. I promise you it has enough of everything that makes for a good horror movie. Very similar to horror, we have the thriller genre. Now a thriller movie is all about the thrills it induces in its audience. Mainly, they create an atmosphere of tension and suspense, and also most good mystery films are thrillers because it's so easy to manipulate the watcher's viewing experience due to its control of emotions. Now my favorite kinds of thrillers are psychological thrillers because I've always been so interested in humans and how we work, and therefore a movie that brilliantly tackles all of this is Shutter Island. I don't want to say much about this movie because its mystery is what makes it so damn good. All I can say is be ready to be confused, but in a good way. A very good way. Watch Shutter Island. It's the embodiment of what psychological thrillers are, and it'll leave you contemplating some big and complex ideas. Another genre of thriller movies is the crime thriller, as I like to call it. Basically a murder mystery but with elements of horror that focuses on finding or catching a devious, often murderous culprit. My favorite movie within this genre is Zodiac, which is, yes, based on the real Zodiac murders. It has Robert Downey Jr., who's just amazing, and along with Mark Ruffalo and Mysterio, the cast is really good. It's such an interesting topic, and it's a very interesting movie. I'd recommend it as a very solid thriller. But Shutter Island is my choice. Watch that one first. Now let's talk about the drama genre. This is the genre that dominates the Best Picture award at the Oscars every year. Most of the greatest movies of all time are dramas, and they all represent the genre very well. However, Shawshank Redemption is the creme de la creme of the drama genre. Not only is it one of the objectively best movies of all time, it is also the movie that made Morgan Freeman narration popular, and for that we should all thank this film and watch it with admiration. No, but actually, Shawshank Redemption is a beautiful tale of inspiration and hope and, well, redemption. It takes place in a very awful prison called Shawshank, and our boy Andy Dufresne basically has to survive and learn to thrive there, leaving his old life behind. You'd think the pacing in this movie would be extremely slow and it would be a draggy film, but no, so much fucking happens that it's just emotion upon emotion upon emotion. This movie will move you and it will affect you in some kind of way. There's drama, of course, but it's a movie that deals with the very essence of what being alive actually means. It's deep, the best drama movie out there in my opinion. If you want to take a different route, perhaps something newer and more horrifying, then I'd recommend Parasite. Now, Parasite is a Korean movie, and I chose this movie because I think a lot of the best dramas you can find are foreign films. They do these extremely well, and yeah, it's important to open your mind to different cultures and different kinds of filmmaking. At its core, Parasite is a weird movie. It could definitely have been in the thriller section because it definitely has its moments and it leaves you a bit unnerved. However, I think it works best as a drama. It's a complex look into human nature, class divisions, and how greed, temptation, and wealth affect and motivate us as people. It's a heartbreaking movie that will truly move you. Trust me, there's a reason it won Best Picture. Now, very related to the seriousness of the drama genre, we have comedy. Now, I don't watch a lot of comedy movies, which I know you're all thinking must be a lie since I'm such a funny guy. However, I've just never been that drawn to watch watching them alone, and I watch too many movies alone so I don't get around to watching them a lot. However, in my opinion, The Dictator is peak comedy. Now, comedy is one of the most subjective things in the world. I find dark and offensive humor extremely funny when done right, while others like more intricate, thoughtful humor, and some just like saying tits. So naturally, some of you won't find The Dictator nearly as funny as I do, and many of you will probably think that I'm an ass for thinking this way, because this movie is a lot. But fuck it, I don't care. Sacha Baron Cohen is hilarious, and his satire is one of my favorite shit to watch, period. Borat is also extremely funny, but The Dictator just does it for me. It's a great film to watch with your friends at movie night, because all comedy movies are just funnier with people around to bounce off of. So yeah, my first choice is by far The Dictator. Now, I searched up good comedy movies to try and get inspiration for a more traditional comedy, and I found out that Groundhog Day is technically a comedy. So yeah, I'm choosing that one because I like it. I really like comedy movies like this where there's a story being told with elements of comedy within it, rather than just pure uncomplex humor. It makes for a more satisfying experience. So yeah, Groundhog Day is a classic, and I'd recommend it if offensive humor like in The Dictator isn't your thing, which I can completely understand. Also, give me some good comedy recommendations down in the comments, please. From Groundhog Day, we fittingly move into the romance category. And for our romance choice, we have The Notebook. Nah, fuck that shit, that movie's too cliche. A Star is Born is a much more gritty and realistic love story. This film is both a heartwarming and heart-wrenching love story about a talented, aspiring singer who falls in love with a veteran rock star. First of all, the music in this movie is just amazing, and it builds the atmosphere of the movie so well. There's a lot of emotions going on in the movie, so be ready to feel shit. If a more down-to-earth romance isn't your thing, then Titanic is of course a good choice. Everyone knows Titanic, and everyone knows that there was room for two on that door. Fuck you, Rose. But yeah, Titanic is a classic love story of a fine lady and a skater boy falling for each other and having to survive the goddamn Titanic sinking together. It's jam-packed with emotion, and Leonardo DiCaprio is just a phenomenal actor in everything he does. So yeah, for the romance genre, I choose A Star is Born and Titanic. Now we swerve it up a bit and move into the action-adventure genre, which is one of my personal favorites. For my ideal vision of a great action-adventure movie, we have Gladiator. This movie is a masterpiece of a story. It's epic, it's inspiring, it's sad, and it just overall tells a beautiful story that, along with the great action set pieces, has a lot of nuance. Gladiator is probably the movie that I would say is arguably the objectively best movie within this genre, and I'd recommend it highly. However, if you want a more lighthearted, comedic action-adventure movie, then look no further than the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy. And yes, I say trilogy because only the first three are worthy of this spot. Pirates of the Caribbean, although not being incredibly thematic movies, encapsulate exactly what this genre is all about. There's action, there's adventure, they're incredibly enjoyable with great humor and great action scenes. However, that doesn't mean they're simple. These movies have a lot of complex plot going on with Gossip Girl level of drama at all times. This trilogy is my ideal version of what action-adventure movies truly are. However, I still think Gladiator is one of the best movies of all time, so watch it if you haven't already. Now, from the action-adventure genre, the superhero genre was born, and in the past couple of decades, this genre has dominated the box office. However, superhero movies often get a lot of shit for being simple movies with over-the-top action and acting, and I think for the most part this is true. The MCU, although having some incredible movies such as Guardians of the Galaxy and Infinity War, also have a lot of just mediocre movies like the first two Thor movies and Captain Marvel. However, there is one movie within the superhero genre that stands above the rest as one of the greatest movies of all time, The Dark Knight. This gritty and deep Batman movie contains one of the best villains ever on screen and one of the best performances by the late Heath Ledger. The fear and terror evoked by the Joker make this movie overwhelmingly suspenseful. The topics of human nature, terrorism, and anarchy that this movie deals with are so deep and complex, and Christopher Nolan crafts a true cinematic masterpiece. There's a reason this movie can't be touched by other superhero movies, and without a shadow of a doubt, it's my choice for the greatest superhero movie of all time. However, if you want some more lighthearted superhero movies that gravitate more towards the fun side of superhero action, then the Sam Raimi trilogy is a great place to start. It feels almost like a cartoon at times. Talking about superheroes leads us into our next genre, animation. Because my choice here is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. As a movie, Spider-Verse nails it at every level with great story, characters, interesting action, a compelling villain, great music and score, and so much more. But the animation is what sets it apart from other animation movies. The blending of different cultural animation styles acts as a love letter to modern animation, and everything in this film looks stunning. You can't find a single frame that lacks detail or that doesn't tell a specific story. Spider-Verse is a true gift within animation and is so very unique in its style. style. However, if you enjoy old school animation a bit more, then I don't think you can find anything as good as The Lion King. This film was made by Disney's B-Team, but the 2D animation is still stunning. This movie encapsulates African beauty without even having the humans in it. Having seen the blazing fields of the Serengeti and the Masai Mara myself, I get goosebumps every time I watch this pearl of a movie. The Lion King is the most iconic animation movie of all time, and along with Spider-Verse, I believe it to be the best that the animation genre has to offer. The Western genre is another one of those genres that I don't really have much experience with, and originally I didn't want to talk about it because of this reason, but No Country for Old Men is worth talking about. When I first watched this movie, I couldn't stop thinking about Anton Chigurh for a long time afterwards. His coldness impacted me deeply as a 6-year-old, and I think that's worth sharing with you people. This movie choice isn't necessarily the ideal version of a Western, but rather a movie I personally think is worth checking out, so yeah, fuck you, this is my list. Take it as you wish, but No Country for Old Men is my Western choice. I'm not even going to get into the topic of martial arts movies because my bias is too damn high. Actually, you know what? I think I will. I'd definitely choose The Forbidden Kingdom because it's fucking epic and elegant, but I also realize that when you watch it, it just makes no sense at all. But hell, if this isn't an absolute blast. If you're in for a good time with martial arts legends Jackie Chan and Jet Li, then watch Forbidden Kingdom. I'd also choose Kung Fu Panda, which isn't even real people or real martial arts, but it's the star of a movie. It has beautiful animation with a great score, great lovable characters, and Jack Black, goddammit. But yeah, these movies aren't so much recommendations as to what the pinnacle of martial arts movies are, but rather just banging movies that happen to have elements of martial arts in them. And that's honestly what I believe a movie should be. It should always be a movie first before a genre. This is what goes wrong with almost every horror movie, because they only choose to focus on scaring us without providing any meaningful story. Now, my last genre for this video is the epic genre. This genre is a bit more questionable because how do you define an epic? You basically just need a grand scale plot with an inspiring soundtrack, and honestly a lot of movies already on this list can be categorized as epics like Lord of the Rings, Pirates of the Caribbean, or Gladiator. But I'm going to use this opportunity to talk about a few more movies. So Braveheart is basically the Gladiator of Scotland. It's an epic tale of rebellion and hope, and of course, it's a movie that will make you want to stand up against the oppressors and fight for your own freedom, but please remember that it's just a movie. Context matters. And that listening to your government and staying indoors is the absolute best thing you can be doing at the moment. But still, Braveheart makes you feel warm inside. My second choice for a good epic is a much more standard choice because it's Avatar. Now don't get me wrong, Avatar has a great story. It's inspiring and it's devastating. However, the movie was made for the spectacle. It was made to impress. Avatar is the symbol of what modern technology can accomplish within movies. It was made to be epic, and therefore it's no wonder that it's amongst my favorite epic films. And if you haven't watched it, then this is a good time because 3 more are apparently on their way. Anyways, those were my recommendations for which movies are the ideal pictures of what a specific movie genre is, in my humble opinion. If you disagree with any of my choices, then don't forget to leave your own opinions down in the comments. Let's just keep it civil though, alright? If you want more content from me, then don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Join my Discord for riveting discussions, the link will be down in the comments. Anyways, I wish you all a happy day, stay safe, and peace out.